you all for coming here. Before we begin, just off topic, is not what you're here to talk about, but I've sort of pledged to myself that anytime we have any representatives of the intelligence community before us, that I would drive this point home, even though it's not directly under your jurisdictions, but nonetheless, and I think probably directed to Deputy Director Dixon and Secretary, Undersecretary Moultrie, and that is, let me just make this broader point first. Intelligence, by necessity, is something we keep out of the public eye, right? Because we can't conduct it in the sunshine. But there has to be oversight, and so that's why these committees were created. And I'm actually very proud to be a member of this committee. Most of our work is not on camera, maybe why most of our work is productive, nonpartisan, and serious. There's no reason to show off in front of the cameras because no one's in there to watch that. But I think also because all the members on this committee that are picked individually by the respective leaders of the two parties are people that take this task very seriously, and I'm very proud of the work that we do. But it only works if we have access and we can conduct oversight. We have to know what the intelligence agencies, not because we're nosy. This is not a book. We can't tell anybody anyways. It's because we need to know. Because when things go wrong down the road, people are going to want to know, why wasn't there oversight being conducted? And we know that classified information was removed from at least 3 from individuals that previously served in the government, 2 of them as president, 1 as president. And we need to understand what that material was, so that we can determine whether the intelligence community has established both the appropriate mitigation and the appropriate risk calculus as to what could have been revealed. We do not have that, and the excuse is an unacceptable one, that there's a special prosecutor process going on and that. In no way, we're not interested in the criminal justice aspect of it. What we need to understand is stuff, I would almost assure you we have access already to most of the material. We just don't know which ones they are. So how can we make a judgment as to whether the proper risk calculus is in place and whether the proper mitigation of any is being implemented if we don't know what it is or what we're talking about? So again, I know it's not anything you two handle personally, directly, but I hope you'll go back and say that the Intelligence Committee raised it again today.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Because just so that we show, Stacy, this was not pre-wired. Before you got here, I shared with the committee that I had, had a very frank and candid discussion with the Deputy Attorney General, and basically said exactly the same things, that while they're promising documents, within a week or so, they have not performed to date. And I think if you ask every member on this committee, we have a responsibility to the other 85 senators. So I just want to echo what the Vice Chairman just said.
Yeah, as I said, I think there's everyone is very serious about it, and I hope we can find resolution on it. I think the other one, and I'll be even briefer on this one, but I think is also important to us is, we had a Chinese balloon go across the middle of the United States. It wasn't a weather balloon. Everybody acknowledges it was a collection platform. We've had very little information or data provided to us. And in particular, no one's even truly informed us what role the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, has played in that regard. Again, I don't know what, maybe this is because it's a DOD Intelligence Committee sort of overlap, but whatever it is, these are things that we need answers to, and we just, to think about how important that was and how little information has been provided to the committees, particularly to this one, is something that I hope you'll also take back as concern number 2 in this regard. Now, on the topic that we're on today, I think it's a pretty straightforward one, and that is we need to be able to hire good people to come in and work for the government. We need to know who they are. I think this is a challenge because the backlog builds up, because there's been improvement after the 2016 DOD system was implemented. But obviously that doesn't apply to all the IC. I think there's some issues with not reciprocating one agency, not reciprocating the other. And then there's this, and I'm not saying it's unnecessary, but this Byzantine system of read into some programs but not others, all of the different layers of compartments and so forth. But the main point is, I think it's getting increasingly difficult. I'm just telling you from people that I know, I've actively tried to encourage people to pursue serving their country at one of the agencies. And it's just really hard, because when you go see them and you tell them, well, it'll take 3 or 4 years to clear you, 2 or 3 years to clear you, who can sit around for 2 or 3 years to wait to be hired, especially when we're competing with the private sector for some of this talent? There are a lot of people willing to do it. So I think that's what I'm most interested in learning, is how do we balance the need to bring in people you can trust and understand who they are with the desire to do it quickly and enough so that this is a viable option for people that want to come work here. And I think there are ways to do it. I also think it's going to get more challenging. In some ways, it's probably easier to hire a 23-year-old because they haven't traveled the whole planet, and frankly, I would imagine that for at least half that time of their lives, they weren't doing anything nefarious, and the other half, well, but we can manage it. But when you're 23, there's limited windows, as opposed to somebody who's 55 and has worked in the private sector, and you need to know more about their background and the like. But I think the flip side of it is, I think it's going to be impossible in the years to come to hire someone who hasn't had a substantial social media profile and platform. What that has exposed them to, whether it's data or places they've traveled or people they've interacted with or relationships they have. I also think the nature of espionage has changed. It's not some James Bond figure rappelling off the side of a building. It might be someone who doesn't even know they're operating as a spy. But they're operating as an influence agent and those sorts of relationships. So all that is to say it's a tricky problem, but one we got to figure out, and we want to know what progress we're making on it, because we need to be able to attract talented people to serve our country in these roles. So thank you for coming in.
Well, thank you, Senator Rubio. And again, we've